The Middle East has been reshaped in just 9 days. One of the region's most ruthless and resilient regimes has fallen. But who were they? Who toppled them? And what could it mean for the rest of the region? 2 weeks ago, the Assad regime looked to be as secure as any in the Middle East, after more than a decade of civil war which had stagnated into a bloody stalemate. It's now over for the Syrian dictatorship, with Bashar Al-Assad fleeing the country and rebels taking control of the capital. In 2011, anti-government protests soon engulfed the country in civil war. The Assad regime ruled Syria with an iron fist for 54 years, first under Hafez al-Assad and then his son, Bashar. Bashar was never meant to inherit control of the country, but was propelled into power after his older brother Basil was killed in a car accident 20 years ago. The Assad family hailed from an ethnic minority group, the Alawites. They ruled with a permanent anxiety that they could be removed by Syria's majority Sunni population. When he came to power in 2000, Bashar became the genteel face of what was a murderous regime. A softly spoken eye doctor who studied in the West, Bashar's glamorous wife, Asma, was even featured in Vogue magazine in 2011. 2011 also saw waves of unrest rip through the Middle East, known as the Arab Spring. It toppled regimes in Tunisia, Libya, Egypt and Yemen. Dictators were on notice, and the Assad family would do anything to stay in control. As the Arab Spring spread to Syria, the regime cracked down on protesters with ferocious disregard for human life. Those crackdowns would spark a vicious civil war, with the regime turning to ever more brutal methods, including barrel bombs and the indiscriminate use of artillery and airstrikes, the widespread use of torture and mutilation of prisoners.
We have been very clear to the Assad regime, but also to other players on the ground, that a red line for us is we start seeing a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
More than 600,000 people have been killed in Syria's civil war. 13 million were displaced and nearly 7 million fled the country seeking refuge. Iran and Russia helped the Assad regime cling to power. Iran's proxy, the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, volunteered fighters. Russia used Syria as its major gateway to projecting power in the Middle East. The Kremlin has a major naval base on Syria's coast. But Syria's long-standing allies were unable to prop up Assad any longer. Russia was focused on the war in Ukraine, where it's claimed 20% of the former Soviet republic. Iran has been distracted by its brinkmanship with Israel, and Hezbollah has been drastically weakened by Israeli attacks. In that chaos, the Syrian rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, saw an opportunity. The group first attacked the Syrian city of Aleppo, taking the city's outskirts on November the 29th, before entering the city the next day. Aleppo's fall came as a complete shock. It had been under secure regime control since 2016. Regime-held cities then began to fall like dominoes. Next came Homs, and then Hama, then Damascus, the capital. Bashar fled with his entourage to Russia, fleeing what would have been an almost certain death at the hands of the rebel groups. But what is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the group which has defeated the Assad regime? HTS is a designated terrorist group made up of Sunni Muslims, who make up the majority of Syria's population. The group was founded by Abu Mohammed al-Golani, who was once part of the Iraqi insurgency against the United States.
This victory, my brothers, is a new chapter in the history of the entire Islamic nation. It is a turning point for the region. How many dangers have we avoided? Assad handed Syria over to Iranian ambitions, spreading sectarianism and corruption throughout the country.
It was previously known as the Al-Nusra Front and declared allegiance to al-Qaida before splitting with them. US intelligence services have been keeping a close eye on Syria's chemical weapons stocks, over concerns that HTS could use them for its own ends. Iran and Russia have been dealt a strategic blow. Russia risks losing its main access point on the Mediterranean, and Israel is on alert in the Golan Heights, originally Syrian territory which Israel has now occupied. The stark reality now is that a former al-Qaida ally is in control of one of the Middle East's major powers.